Morning, everybody. Welcome to Trading Capital's daily live stream of the market open. Today is currently May the 7th. Jumping into the S&P 500 daily chart here. Overall, it's another gap up session in the S&P. Right now, the S&P is slightly green, up 0.16. QQQ is flat, and the Russell's up 0.28%. You have the VIX down, yields down, and the dollar is just slightly flat on the session. So the majority of the tailwinds, headwinds right now, yield soft, VIX soft, oil soft, nat gas soft. So you have a lot of the tailwinds in favor for the market to actually continue higher here. There is some selling in the pre-market, weakness in NVDA, Microsoft, AMD, SMCI, Tesla. Some of the semiconductors are seeing some weakness on the back of Apple announcing the fact that they're starting their own in-house AI chip. Again, this is going to be something similar to Meta in my opinion. Initially, it's positive for Apple. Again, if Apple starts to design in-house, it becomes very, very costly in the near term. And that's kind of what investors priced into Meta with their larger CapEx expenditures. So obviously that gap down in earnings was definitely a pretty harsh. Couple stocks we're looking at. Disney gapping down in the session. There is viable support potentially at this 106 area along with this Fibonacci 382 fib level. We also have Peloton gapping up, Palantir gapping down, Rivian gapping up here. We have Cell H gapping down a little bit. It actually has bounced off of the lows. So again, my area of focus, shorting the S&P in this gaps fill and this downsloping trend line. That's my area of focus. I do think that even crypto stocks can come under pressure. I'm seeing a bear flag on Bitcoin, so I think that there's a short trade in Mara today. Again, Mara had that astonishing move, but I am seeing a bit of a bear flag formation in Bitcoin. And what I think is occurring here is we're about to lose this little key trend line, pivot to pivot to pivot. We're currently below it, which means I have to lean bearish. And this is a bear flag forming, so I think that crypto stocks could see some downside. Right now you have MSTR up 1, Coin up 0.3, Mara's down 1.35. ARM is up 2, Meta slightly negative, Google slightly positive, Amazon slightly negative. Just scrolling through the watch list here. Adobe slightly green, Baba down 2%. Boeing seeing some continuation down move. Scrolling through here just to see if there's any market move. Rivian up 9.68% right now. A whopping move on Rivian. A whopping move. Let's actually look at Rivian really quickly. So obviously Rivian has been beaten down with Tesla. You can see the resistance it's into now. If we were to draw a fib retrace from this gap down low, believe it or not, being the fact that we're above this 382, it likely means we're probably going to push for this 50% fib level. So 1182 is a potential short zone on Rivian. 1182, it is aggressive, but it is a potential short zone on Rivian. You can see Bitcoin starting to come in a little bit. Let's look at MSTR. So many different things on watch. I'm looking for a short on crypto stocks, guys. Short on crypto stocks. I'm looking for a short on the S&P. Day trade. Bitcoin coming in sharply now. Bit of a head and shoulders appearing on the BTC chart. One thing I am observing is you have the dollar slightly flat, yield slightly negative, and gold is actually under pressure in a little bit here. Same thing with silver, just slightly under pressure, which kind of telling us that maybe there's a bit of a reversal about to take place. So I'm just going to take it slow. Morning, everybody. Morning, everybody. Tesla's gapping down to 182 right now. We have 4 minutes till the open. And my area of focus might be on Disney, crypto, and the S&P. Just make sure my hash rate is up. Perfect. Couple other headlines coming across CNBC right now. Stan Druckenmiller gives Biden economic policy an F, blames the Fed for reigniting inflation. A little bit of headlines around Trump, Stormy Daniels. Self-driving startup, Wave just raised $1 billion from NVDA. Chump change for NVIDIA. Obviously Disney gapping down. All right, let's flip back to the chart since we're about to open here. And let's focus on some of these trade setups. Again, I'm watching Disney on my other chart here for potential bounce. But we just have to be mindful that stocks that are gapping down on earnings they can go farther and lower than we expect. Apple gapping up, so that's the strong horse. There might be a little bit of pairs trade, short the Qs, long Apple. I don't like to chase Apple off of gap up. I don't like to chase any stock off of a gap up, but again, there might be an opportunity there. Amazon looking to press higher here. Amazon has a key gap just above 189. Meta's slightly green, Google slightly green as well. All right, guys, 1 minute till the open. 1 minute till the open. Let's see how Disney reacts off of support. We'll watch the S&P, and we'll see Disney here. All right, so the markets are open here, guys. Markets are open. S&P at the moment just hovering near the highs, still off of its gap fill. You can see Disney is trying to bounce off of this key fib zone. Still a little weak. Let's see if it can tap that EMA. Disney still struggling here in this range. S&P Qs are coming in a touch. Apple still continue to look strong. Microsoft is reversing from the highs, guys. Intel's looking a little bit stronger. Continuation move coming in Intel. Disney piercing that 382, getting a bounce right now. Alright, SPY's pushing for a new high there. Disney's still strong. Bouncing off the lows. S&P is at the highs. Going for that gap fill, guys. Get ready to short the S&P 500 here. I'll let you know when I take the trade. I'm looking at a pierce of this 518 as a starter position. I repeat, a pierce of the 518. Looking at the Qs. Qs are into some really, really solid resistance as well on the daily. Look at the IWM. That's also pushing up into some key resistance at the moment. Boeing still coming in. I'm not in yet. I'm still just waiting. Alright guys, I'm going to short MSTR here, 1278, 1278. This is a 1/4 entry. I'm short MSTR, 1278, 1278. I will add to the position. At 1300. Guys, just be careful. I do think the indices can see some sell side pressure. I really do. Nvidia's down 1.3. That's not a good sign. Microsoft's still negative. Tesla's down 2. Semis are still holding slightly green at the moment. Bitcoin's trying to catch another little bit higher here. Nat Gas trying to catch a bid. Oil's trading below 78 right now. Alright, S&P, since we're not really selling off too hard at 518, let it pierce this level, I think, before we start to potentially short. Again, looking at some of these market movers. Alright, so we're short MSTR at the moment. 1/4 entry. I'm seeing Nvidia weakening. Semis are weakening a touch. The Russell's still super, super strong. S&P's starting to roll over a touch, guys. S&P, Rams asking, Palantir long, Mara falling. MSTR, is there any ticker which shorts MSTR rather than buying puts or shorting the stock? I'm not too sure if there's an inverse. That's a good question, Ram. I'm honestly not too sure at this point. Semis are seeing a little bit more weakness. Microsoft's trying to go back to the green side. S&P, Qs, and Russell are all green. Dollar's being faded slightly. Alright, MSTR just added there at 1300, guys. I did get filled at 1300 as our second entry. My average is now sitting at 1288.61. 1288.61 on MSTR. Seeing oil trying to form a bottom here. There is a scenario where we can also go long USO. Long USO in this region is kind of interesting for a trade. Guys, I'm going to go long USO here at 75.25. 75.25. long USO. Stop loss is going to be low of day. Or sorry, this wick low, 74.97. I'm long USO at 75.27. This is a day trade. Looking for a move back into gap. We'll keep MSTR on watch here. USO on watch. Nat Gas trying to push. Disney's still weak. Boeing is weak. Bear flag on Boeing. Alright, so we're slightly green on MSTR, guys. We are slightly green on MSTR. S&P is starting to come in a little bit more now. NVDA trying to bounce here. It's only down 0.81%. Apple's still looking strong. Meta's slightly negative, getting sold into off of its gap up. Bitcoin's still struggling in this region, although the dollar's weak coming in. The Dixie's actually rolled over to the negative side at the moment. Alright, so we're seeing a big bounce in NVIDIA. Alright, next ad on MicroStrategy is going to be about 20 bucks higher, 1320. I'll add to the position. And then at your wick high, just a pierce of your wick high, 1340. So basically every $20 I'll add. Still seeing Builders down 11, Walt Disney down 8, Axon down 5, Tesla down 2, Rockwell Automation down 2.7, Boeing's in that list. Outperformance, International Paper, Fidelity, FMC Corp, Henry Schein, On Semiconductor, Simon Property Group. Alright, Bitcoin's starting to weaken here a little bit, guys. So we are right now just short Bitcoin. Sorry, short MicroStrategy, which is basically a Bitcoin short, and we're long USO. I repeat, we're long oil USO at 75.25, okay? Come on, MicroStrategy. Bring it in. Bring it in. You know you want to. MicroStrategy is still trying to bounce, but then you have Bitcoin actually diverging here. Bitcoin is actually coming in a touch here. A little bit of a bear flag trying to break down on BTC. MSTR should follow suit. It's just trying to see a little bit of strength with the equity markets. Guys, I'll add to my USO at 75.08, and remember the stop loss is 74.96. Bitcoin is starting to weaken a touch, just a touch here. Alright guys, the S&P, MicroStrategy are all trying to push up a little bit. Uranium is confirming a technical breakout today, guys. As of now, is confirming a massive technical breakout. Again, we put this on your radar. Look at the CCJ is probably also going to push higher here. Let's look at Disney. That's bouncing a little bit. Let's look at Rivian. That's reversed right off that 382 fib level. This one actually could have a little bit of a continuation move if the market stays firm, but you've had Microsoft now roll over. NVIDIA's down 1. So it does appear this market's going to be in for a little bit of sell side, pressure. Oil's still weak. Trying to push up here. MSTR is trying to catch a bid. Still have coin positive. Mara's got a nice bid. Mara again has broken out of a little bit of a inverse head and shoulders. You can see the S&P is into some really sizable resistance here, but still trying to act okay. MSTR is still trying to push up here. We are seeing semis just a little bit weaker on the session. Oil's still struggling here. NVIDIA's coming in, guys. The Russell's seeing some sellers. QQQ is the worst performing indice right now. You have weakness in Tesla, SMCI, Microsoft, NVIDIA. Apple right now is up 1.5%. Then you also have Meta slightly negative, Google, Amazon green. Marijuana stocks are catching a bid. Energy stocks are also seeing a little bit of buy pressure. Carvana just turned slightly green. Semis are still struggling here, guys. Bitcoin's still putting in a bear flag. QQQ sold my 425 calls and 429 early yesterday. Still had a June 21st expiry. Wow. Hey, that's okay, Ram. I mean, you still probably made money on that trade, right? So that's the main thing. We are really seeing the Qs struggle here. Semiconductor bear ETF. I'm still holding from yesterday that semiconductor long, the SOXS. My average is 33.53. 33.53 on the semiconductor bear ETF. Okay, we are seeing that come in at the moment. You can see the QQQ is struggling the most. S&P still trying to hold steady, but it does look like it wants to come lower to its gap fill. So we're still short MSTR and we're long USO. That USO trade is coming down a little bit. So again, I will add to my USO at 75.08. That'll be our second entry on oil, 75.08. But again, a stop loss is in place. If we breach the 74.96 zone, I will be exiting the trade. Okay, so we have a half position in MSTR short. We have a 1/4 position long USO. And it is coming into that next add level, guys. So I'll let you know, 75.08, I will add my second entry to the position. I repeat, my second entry to the position. It's coming down. It's 3 cents away on USO. Amazon pushing. Bitcoin bear flag starting to play out here, guys. So BTC bear flag is starting to potentially play out here. That should help our micro strategy. Basically, they're probably going to move in tandem, these two. So let's just see if Bitcoin can actually finally trigger a little bit of this bear flag. Again, downside target basically off of this little flag pattern should take us to about 63,000, which is about a 500-point decline. MSTR, we're slightly green. XOM trying to catch a little bit of a bid here. Apple still surging. Microsoft coming in some more. Google still pushing up 1.37. Tesla just struggling here. I mean, Tesla bear flag on the hourly chart looking pretty horrific. It looks like Tesla's going to test the 170 area again. That's what it's looking like. You have marijuana stocks starting to push up here. So looking at CGC, they're actually outperforming the market right now, trying to push up really, really hard here, guys. We have seen marijuana stocks outperform as equity markets go through a bit of a decline. We have seen that play out. All right, guys, I just added to my USO 7508, 7508. My average is now sitting at 7516, 7516. We are starting to bleed a little bit lower here. Still short MSTR. Bitcoin still trying to hold steady. NASDAQ going for a new high of day. All right, guys, I just took a 517 put on the S&P, filled at 62 cents. 517 put, 62 cents. On the SPY. 517 put on the SPY, filled at 62 cents. Look at this. Nice move down coming into the fruition here. Again, we are short MSTR at this 1288.61. It's a half position. We're in a 517 SPY put at 62 cents. And we're long USO, which that one's struggling. We're down about 11 cents on the USO trade. But up nicely on SPY, up nicely on MSTR. Starting to see semis weaken. Bitcoin's now starting to trigger a bear flag, guys. So this is really going to help our MicroStrategy trade. Take a look at Bitcoin. Bear flag is triggering. I repeat, bear flag is triggering. Everyone's had the opportunity to get in this trade with us. Nice little decline coming into crypto here. Beautiful, beautiful decline coming into crypto. This is what we like to see. This is exactly like we want to. Nice move down. Come on. 517 put on the SPY. Let's see if we can get in the money. Cons are at 81 cents now. Come on. Get us to the 517 strike zone, and I will be a happy man. I will be a happy man. Bitcoin trading at 63.2. It's coming in hard. NVDA is seeing some more selling. Let's go, guys. Let's go. MSTR target price. Honestly, gap fill. Gap fill. I see Bitcoin flushing to about 63,000 is near-term target, but really 62K. Bitcoin could hit 62K today, guys. Bitcoin could easily hit 62K today. And that would probably put MSTR around the 1200, maybe 1150. NVIDIA, look at NVIDIA, guys. They're just beating up NVIDIA. Look at that harsh selling, now down 2.81%, going for its gap fill. So this is pretty impressive to see. This is pretty impressive to see. Our USO trade, guys, we may get stopped out of USO for a loss. It's not at our stop loss yet, but it's about 4 cents away from triggering. And again, I'm looking for a 2-minute close below that 74.96 on. Can we buy more puts? Yeah, you most likely can, but again, just watch out for NVIDIA because it's had a stellar fall. And you could obviously get a little bit of a buy the dip program. Tesla's still weak. The big thing about this market is if you see Apple also start to give up the majority of its gains, this market could go negative today. I'm still expecting the indices to potentially go negative. Again, I'm still riding a short on MicroStrategy, a SPY 517 put at 62 cents a contract, a USO long. Take a look at USO. That's trying to catch a little bit of a bid here. They're trying to defend the lows. Let's look at the SPY. Let's look at the QQQ. Qs are the weaker indice at the moment. They are looking to potentially go negative. Again, Bitcoin's really struggling. It's bouncing off 63,000 in the near term. Bouncing off 63,000 in the near term. A lot of red starting to appear on the screen, guys. You still have the majority of all sectors in the S&P green except for XLY. But a lot of red on my screen at the moment. Guys, as soon as these puts get in the money, if this 517 hits, I'm going to close half of the put position and then basically leave half runners. But as of now, it is getting a stellar bounce. Cons are back to 73 cents. Could have taken some profits there, but didn't. MSTR trying to bounce as well. Bitcoin's catching some buying pressure at the moment. This is probably your re-entry to short if you're not short the S&P. It's probably a re-entry right there. The Dixie's still trying to hold 105. Again, right now we're seeing Apple coming in pretty hard. NVIDIA's trying to bounce and stabilize things. Cons are back up to 79 cents on the SPY 517 put. Take a look at, so semis are going through a bit of a distribution phase here, and then the crazy thing about this is that if you break out, this is trying to break out of a little bit of a falling wedge pattern. You know, you could easily have, you know, big technical breakdown yesterday on the semis. No confirmation has been observed yet, and we are trying to see market participants negate that breakdown on the semiconductor bear ETF. So obviously NVIDIA is going to be a huge proponent whether or not we break down. Let's see AMD. Let's see AVGO. Let's see Intel. That's obviously shaking and moving here. Let's look at the QQQ. SPY. So SPY is getting a really sizable bid here. A decent bid off of the lows. Oil had a nice spike off of the lows. Again, we're still long USO as well. That one spiked to our break even. So they're still trying to defend it. Again, I'm still riding MSTR on the short side. I still think Bitcoin has a little bit more downside. S&P getting a nice sizable rally back up. Google still strong. Nat gas slightly green. Bitcoin negative. MSTR still up 0.5%. Coin up down 1.43. Mara down 1.55. Again, Bitcoin is trying to bounce here. S&P still strong here, guys. Guys, I'm going to take a 516 put on the SPY as well. 41 cents. Just got filled. 516 put. Expiry today. 41 cents. This is high risk. Super, super high risk. MSTR is still trying to roll over, so we're riding now 517 put and a 516 put. 517 at 62 cents, 516 at 41 cents a con. All expiring today. Again, I may close the 516 early if it starts to flush. Still holding MSTR. Bitcoin still struggling here a touch. QQQ still holding slight positive gains, but you have NVIDIA down 2.34%. Microsoft still negative. There goes MSTR. There goes the SPY. Come on, baby. Flush us into 517. All right, guys. So, again, my strategy for 517 puts, if we hit in the money, I'm going to close half, leave runners. If we hit the gap fill, I'll probably close the full 517 position. Look at this, guys. We are printing now. We are printing. Come on. Come on. Flush it, flush it, flush it. So, again, I'm going to close half at in the money, 517. Leave runners with a break-even stop loss, and then we still have 516s that potentially could come into fruition here. If we look at this 10-minute chart and look at the stellar move that we've had off of the lows, it's been a pretty decent sized move off the lows. If we do a fib retrace from where we currently are to the high, which was this gap today, you can see even a retrace, a simple retrace could take us down to 512.27. That could actually happen, believe it or not, today. MSTR coming in hot, guys. MSTR coming in hot. We're still short MSTR. Good to see that that's working out well. SPY's being slightly defended here in the near term. Come on. Give us a dump. MSTR gaps sitting all the way down here. That could give us a winning trade. If MSTR hits its gap fill, which I think could be very, very likely, that's about a 5.2% gain to us. Right now we're up 1.75 respectively, and it is falling. I'm seeing Bitcoin breaking down some more. Take a look at this BTC chart, guys. We warned you of this little bear flag at the open, and now what's interesting is we actually have a head and shoulders that is potentially triggering here on BTC. How I want to show you this pattern is observed like this. So again, BTC gives us this downside target of about just above 62K in the near term. The Dixie is still trying to bounce here, holding above 105 at the moment. Boeing still a bear flag. Oil still coming in a touch. NVIDIA, Tesla coming in. Microsoft still seeing some sellers. Come on, 517 puts. We're up nicely on the SPY puts, guys. We're up nicely again. Anyone that hasn't hit the like button, please do so. We're here every day on the live stream trying to provide alpha opportunities, and we certainly have at the moment. Oil, that trade is looking like it may go against us in the near term. All right, guys, oil's on watch for a stop loss here. It's testing our stop loss on USO. Just be very, very careful because I am monitoring the 74.96 level. 2-minute close stops me out of the trade for a small loss. Okay, guys? 2-minute, I'm watching on my other screen here, but a 2-minute close below that 74.96 stops me out of the trade for a loss. Okay. MicroStrategy still coming in. Bitcoin still struggling here, looking a little bit weaker at the moment. Come on. Give it up, SPY. Give it up. S&P's still trying to hold steady. Tesla coming in, but NVIDIA's trying to bounce. Amazon coming in. Apple's now coming in. Google seeing some selling. Here comes the S&P, guys. Here comes the S. Remember, I'm going to close half of the 517 puts MicroStrategy, we're riding. All right, I just took profits, guys. Half of the 517 puts went in the money there. Sold at 93 cents. Sold at 93 cents. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I still think we can come lower, guys. Nice 47% gain on that trade, guys. Beautiful job. Still riding half of the 517s and 516s. 516s we're up to 54 cents a con. We're up 15 cents. Look at this, guys. Look at this. Again, now I will close the full 517 position. If we hit this gap fill, I'm going to close the full 517 position, okay? Still riding both, though. Runners on 517s, and we still have 516s as well. We still have an MSTR trade. All right, guys, I just stopped out of USO for a loss. Apologies about that one. That one I stopped out for a loss. Okay, 2-minute close below. So we lost from 75.16 to 74.96. That's a 20-cent loss on that trade, 20 cents per share. But that's okay. We're well covered from the MSTR and SPY put position. Meta is still curling in. Look at this semiconductor bear ETF. That one's still trying to push higher and break. SPY trying to bounce off of 517 at the moment. Bitcoin trying to find some support at 63. Boeing still struggling. XOM still struggling. Oil's still coming in. The Russell's trying to get a sizable bounce. Yields are still flat. Gold, silver, negative. QQQ still holding slightly green, but you have NVIDIA, Microsoft, AMD, SMCI, Tesla, AVGO, Meta, negative. So right now it's Google, Apple, and Amazon still holding things to the positive side. We're still seeing those names acting well. PayPal, surprisingly, is actually strong to up 1%. How's Disney doing at the moment? Again, Tesla's now down 3% and falling. Crazy price action in Tesla. Riot's down 3%, AMD down half. S&P is catching a sizable rally here. Let's see if we want to put in another lower high on the S&P. It does appear to be that way. It does appear we're going to get another lower high. Tesla chart is just getting absolutely pummeled here, guys. Look at this Tesla chart. Bear flag, breakdown. Not looking good for Tesla. If Tesla flushes into this little pivot zone here, guys, I would consider going long for a day trade. So this one, if we get a straight flush in the next, say, 20 to 30 minutes into this 175.89 pivot or 176 pivot, I'd consider going long. It's aggressive, it's high risk, but I'd consider going long. But it does look like Tesla's going to head for this gap fill. Probably not today, but maybe by the end of the week, there's a potential. Just with this bearish breakdown out of this range. So again, keep 176 on watch for Tesla. Bitcoin's trying to bounce here, guys. MSTR. So MSTR is trying to catch a bid. S&P still struggling a touch here, guys. I'm still have half of the position on the 517s. Still riding 516s as well. We're up about 5 cents on the 516s. And we're up about almost 20 cents on the 517s after pulling a little bit of profit. All right, market is still trying to stabilize and bounce here. S&P is catching another little bid here. So the S&P 500 still managing to hold on to its gains. Bitcoin trying to firm up, but still seeing some sellers off that 63 range. Again, I could still see Bitcoin retesting 62,000 today. Boeing still struggling. NVDA is trying to bounce off of the and hold the 900 level, but now we're seeing Amazon starting to see some sellers. Apple coming down, hitting its low of day. Microsoft's trying to bounce here. Tesla's still just getting pummeled, guys. Tesla's still just getting pummeled here. S&P moving up. Again, NVIDIA is trying to stabilize the semis, so that's helping crypto in the near term as well. S&P still putting in potentially lower highs on the session. I still think that there's a bit more downside. So we are starting to see the S&P trying to push. Again, I'll put a break-even stop on my 517 put. My average is at 62 cents a contract on the 517 put. 516 put is basically at break-even right now. We've already taken profits on half, still riding a MSTR position on the short side as Bitcoin is struggling in the near term. It's down 0.25%. Tesla's at the lows, Apple's coming down, Google seeing some sellers, Microsoft slightly negative. Mara just don't want to go down. Let's look at Mara. Yeah, I mean Bitcoin right now, and there's still some pockets of strength in the entire crypto space. One of the reasons I picked MicroStrategy as opposed to Coin or Mara is because MicroStrategy is actually just pretty much a Bitcoin play. And when I was looking at other crypto stocks, you know, I saw Bitcoin relatively weak with this little head and shoulders, with the bear flag here, trading underneath this key little upsloping resistance trend line. So in comparing the crypto market, it's always important to recognize that, you know what, other crypto stocks can still be strong even if Bitcoin is falling. You know, Mara and Coin can still move higher even if Bitcoin is struggling more. So you always have to look at, okay, what's Ethereum doing? What's the total market cap doing? What's Solana doing? What's BNB doing? Chainlink. You have to look at all the other crypto coins, and I just wanted to take a pure Bitcoin short via the equity, which is kind of a levered play on Bitcoin, MSTR. And right now we're green. We are green on the trade. So I mean, there's still some pockets of strength in crypto. And right now, all sectors of the S&P are green. The Russell's the strongest. S&P is the second strongest. QQQ is about to roll over. A little bit of a down leg could be starting as well. We're potentially trying to see the Dixie carve out a bottom here on the 5-minute chart. Nice little impulse move, bullish consolidation. It does appear that it wants to hold this zone. And what's interesting is the Dixie actually confirmed an hourly chart breakout of this inverse head and shoulders yesterday. Now there's a scenario we could back test this trend line, which would be a Pierce of 105. But this hourly chart should yield more upside in the US dollar. Our S&P got a nice sizable bid. Let's see if we can get some more sell side pressure. Nat Gas has had a nice move up off of the 227 support zone. It's had a nice little bounce higher. USO is starting to uptick. Apple still selling. Tesla catching a bid. NVDA appears to be putting in maybe a 5-minute bear flag. Same thing with Microsoft, maybe a bear flag. Meta also appears to be putting in a 5-minute bear flag. Amazon, Google just consolidating. Alright, decent bounce coming back into MicroStrategy. No profits were secured on this trade. I'm still riding a little bit of a short trade here. You can see the SPY's trying to push up. Qs are trying to push up. Dollar's trying to push up as well. Big bounce in oil starting to come in. If oil starts to bounce here as well, you know, and so I'm unfortunate that we got shaken out on our USO trade, because that one actually has firmed up off the low, and they shook us out on a 2-minute close, and now that one's starting to push up. That's unfortunate. That's okay though. You win some, you lose some. There's always going to be another opportunity in trade. But so far we've taken about just over 44% on that first, 47% just on that first 517 put on the SPY. Right now, contracts are only up 4 cents on the SPY 517. I'm sitting at a 62-cent average on the 517, and I'm down about 3 cents on the 516s. S&P's trying to grind a little bit here. Guys, the 516s just stopped me out at break even. Sorry, the 517s just stopped me out at break even on the second half of that trade. Still riding a 516 put, but I am down on that one. Down about 7 cents at the moment. So again, the 517 put stopped me at break even. I still think that we could see a little bit more of a move down, but markets are grinding here. Let's look at the QQQ, because that's actually the weakest indice right now, believe it or not. So there might be an opportunity to short the Qs instead of the S&P. $440's at 63 cents. $439. MSTR is trying to bounce. All right, guys, I'm looking at a 440 put on the Qs, 440 0DT put on the Qs. I just got filled at 63 cents. 440 put on the Qs. You can even get a better entry than me. Again, please size options for loss. Please size options for loss. This is not something you want to mess around with. Still holding MicroStrategy, and we're also in now a 440 put on the QQQ. 440 put on the QQQ. My contracts were filled at 63 cents. You get a better entry than me. MicroStrategy trying to catch a bid here. PayPal making a nice move up off of the lows. That one's looking for a potential continuation. IWM just made a new high of day. Same with the Dixie. The Dixie's starting to press a little bit higher here. NVIDIA's still putting in a bear flag. Alright, Qs are still trying to make a move higher here. Apple, big bounce in Apple there on some news. Announces new M4 chip on Apple. Apple announces new M4 chip. That's helping the QQQ at the moment. So look at that big green stick. That's what we got on the Qs. AMD and Coinbase analysis. Let's look at Coin really quickly. That one's had a nice sell-off, just bouncing off of the lows here. Daily chart of Coinbase, kind of mixed right now. 50-50. It could go lower, could go higher. Obviously, with Bitcoin negative and crypto seeing a little bit of distribution, I'm leaning slightly more bearish on some of these crypto names. AMD. Take a look at AMD. Still oversold, but into some resistance here. And semiconductors actually weak today via the SOXX. So SOXX is on watch for a technical breakout, which obviously if it does, then that supports higher prices in some of these semiconductor names. So NVIDIA's getting hit on Apple announcement there. NVIDIA's coming in. Google, Meta still trying to press. Tesla's still weak. Apple's at 184. QQQ still trying to fight this little bit of a 440.86 zone. Again, we're short SPY with 516 put. That's down on us right now. We secured profits on the 517 put. We're still short MSTR, and we're in a 440 put on the QQQ at 63 cents a contract. We're basically just break even at this point. Come on, give us some downside. Again, Apple announcement coming in. NVIDIA is struggling here, down 2.65%. Yields are soft. Again, if you look at the resistance, SPY's into some really sizable resistance here. Same thing as the SPX. Looks like it wants to hit its potential gap fill there. QQQ starting to come in here, guys. We're now up on our 440 put. Again, my same strategy on this play. I'm going to take profits on half and then leave runners on the 440 put. If you want to secure all your puts on 0DTs, that's certainly the prudent and smart thing to do. Again, we are coming in hard, but now we're running into a scenario where there still could be an inverse head and shoulders on the Qs. This could be a right shoulder, so we just need to be mindful of that. We are coming in hard, guys. I'm actually going to take a little bit of profits. I trimmed a little bit of profits here at 80 cents, guys. I trimmed a third of my position at 80 cents, guys. Whoa, look at that. We're now at 85 cents a con. Here we go. Beautiful. Beautiful. Look at that decline, guys. Look at that decline, guys. All right, so I trimmed a third at 85 cents, guys, on the 440 put. Still riding 440s. That was a nice win, guys. Come on, get the Qs in the money. Again, this could be an inverse head and shoulders. We got to be careful about that. But right now, bear flag on Microsoft potentially trying to trigger. Bear flag on NVDA trying to trigger. Bitcoin trying to trigger. It's another bear flag here. You're welcome, Ram. You're welcome. Come on, give it up. Give it up. Let's look at the S&P. That one also a potential inverse head and shoulders that we got to be mindful of. Again, the only thing that makes me skeptical about this pattern is Microsoft and NVIDIA weak. But then you have strength in Apple, Google, Amazon. Still riding MSTR on the short side. Dixie's still trying to press higher here, guys, in the near term. Our 516 SPY put is trying to firm up here, guys. Again, we're still riding 2/3 of the 440 put on the Qs. I will be securing more profits if they go in the money. We trimmed a third of it at 85 cents. We're up nicely, guys. Come on, 440. All right, guys, I just sold there at 91 cents. I closed the 440 put. I still think it'll get in the money, but just off of a gap down there, I'm closing at 92 cents there on the 440 put. Beautiful job on the QQQ trade there, guys. Nice job. I still think it'll get in the money, but I closed it there on that gap down, 92 cents. And now all we have is a MSTR short on watch. Still riding that, common shares. And then we still have a SPY 516 put option. And again, my average on the SPY 516 is at 41 cents. Alright, guys, 41 cents. Let's see the SPY chart here. A little bit stronger. You can see the dip on the inverse isn't as lethal or isn't as deep as the Qs, and this could actually trigger a little bit of a bullish pattern here, guys. So we just want to be mindful that technically the Qs do lead the SPY. So if the Qs kind of break this little neckline, then I do think that the S&P pattern will be invalidated and it won't likely come to fruition. So let's watch the QQQ. It is the weaker indice. MSTR starting to come in. Bitcoin starting to come in. Apple, pretty much Apple reversed that whole little news announcement. Big push up on M4, and then a gap down. And what's interesting about Apple, maybe this is an intraday head and shoulders. Maybe this triggers and causes the QQQ to actually break down more. Remember, Apple's the strong horse today, and if we lose this key zone, you could be in for some trouble in the near term. All right, oil's still trying to recapture 75. Amazon's now coming in, guys. Amazon's starting to fall. Not a healthy sign. So S&P trying to create an inverse head and shoulders. QQQ also very similar, but not as structurally sound as the S&P chart. So, and again, when the Qs are lagging, it makes bullish patterns on the S&P less likely to play out. But right now, the Russell's going for a new high of day, so that's showing some considerable strength. Interesting to see Boeing trying to make a red to green reversal. All right, guys, big technical breakdown coming into Amazon here. QQQ 440 puts are almost in the money. Again, we closed ours a little bit early on that little bit of a sell side pressure. SPY still have 516 puts. SPY is still relatively better than the Qs. The Russell's actually holding considerable strength at the moment, but stocks that were strong are starting to get faded. Amazon getting faded. Next one that could start to get faded is Google. Let's see if Google wants to give up some of its gains. Apple seeing a pretty harsh breakdown. Take a look at that. So this is now where we run into a scenario where Apple's the strong horse. Imagine Apple goes negative today. It's still up 0.71%, but it was up over 1.5% at the highs. So if you have Apple roll over, Microsoft putting in an additional bear flag here, there's just a lot of negative charts looking likely to continue lower here, which is why the QQQ is probably going to see some more sell side pressure at the moment. We are getting a little bit of a technical bounce. NVIDIA is trying to hold. Come on, we're still short MSTR. Really, Bitcoin's not cooperating at the moment. It's just hovering down 0.24%. Again, we still have a SPY 516 put and an MSTR short. Those are really the only two day trades that are on watch right now. SPY 516 put. We've taken profits on QQQ puts, SPY 517 puts, little loss on USO, and a nice little in the money trade right now on MSTR at the moment. And again, my SPY 516 put, 416, that would be crazy. SPY at 416 would be nuts. SPY 516 put, my average at 41 cents. So right now it's sitting at 40 cents a contract. So I still think that there's going to be more sell side. Why? Looks like the S&P is putting in a bullish pattern, but when you look at the Qs, if the Qs take out this pivot low, we're going to see a drop. Microsoft still struggling. Apple also triggering a bit of a head and shoulders breakdown here. NVIDIA's trying to bounce. Oil's still trying to recapture 75. Dixie's holding at 105.12. QQQ being slightly defended here. NVIDIA down 2.5% at the moment. Microsoft slightly negative, down by 0.36. AMD slightly green. SMCI down 1.2. Tesla getting rocked today, down 3.26%. AVGO down 3.27. QQQ just rolled over to the negative side. SPY and Russell still green. Again, typically when the NASDAQ starts to roll over, it could ignite pretty hard sell side pressure that makes it difficult for the S&P to bounce. At the moment, NVIDIA is seeing a bounce, so is Microsoft. But I do think that there's a lot of weak mega cap charts intraday that could push us a little bit lower. At the moment, Russell, new high of day, that's surging. It's interesting to see the big divergence between the Qs and the Russell, and that's part and parcel probably due to the fact that yields are just soft right now. 10 years down 1%. Again, our members were able to make a nice little profit on UBT. Again, members, we exited UBT in the pre-market today at 18.90 for a nice 7.86, and this was a short on interest rates, a short on the US 20 years. So nice little move down on rates. But now we're running into a scenario where rates could start to get into the support zone and actually stage a bit of a bounce. So you can see this little upsloping trend line that we're tagging on the 10-year or coming into on the 10-year. This is an important level for the 10-year yield. Again, you could even come all the way back down to here, but the 10-year is starting to approach some support in a bit of an oversold condition. Let's see if there's any sort of MAs coming into fruition here. You have the 50-day sitting at 4.38, coming up pretty closely here at the moment. So back to MSTR, because that one's trying to firm up a little bit still. I think what we're seeing here is a lot of S&P 500 traders are trying to front run this inverse, and right now it is technically still valid, but the only thing that makes me skeptical about this potential bullish pattern from playing out is the fact that the Qs are actually putting in a little bit of a bear flag here. So market makers are almost roping in S&P 500 trading liquidity, and if the Qs break down, it's going to negate that S&P 500 pattern. Right now the Qs need to firm up off of this zone, but if you negate this, then the Qs do not have that similar inverse head and shoulder structure like the S&P has. At the moment, we are trying to firm up. The Russell is trying to firm up. NVIDIA is curling up. Apple curling down. Microsoft curling up. Meta curling down. Google curling down. Amazon curling down. Tesla's trying to firm up. Bitcoin seeing a little bit more sell side at the moment. Oil's trying to catch a bid off 75 for the USO. WTI crude, what's that sitting at? That's sitting at 77.69 a barrel. XOM struggling in this region. QQQ trying to break this 440 level. Let's see how it'll play out. Come on, break it down. Chop it down. Bitcoin seeing some more sell side pressure. Guys, we're going to get ready to secure some more profits here because we're probably going to get a big flush on the Qs and the S&P. We're about to get a big flush. QQQ tagging that EMA 113, trying to hold support here. Let's look back at the S&P. That one's starting to come in a touch here. Is this an inverse head and shoulders on the SPY? Or are the Qs going to break down and negate that pattern? At the moment, Qs are being defended. NVIDIA, Apple catching a bid. Microsoft catching a bid. Bitcoin selling off a little bit harder. We're still riding MSTR on the short side off this 1288 level. But the QQQ trying to firm up here. Alright, so bullish structure on the S&P is still trying to hold. I repeat, bullish structure on the S&P is still trying to hold. The dollar's trying to move up still, guys. So now we're in a scenario where the Dixie is also trying to push up out of a little bit of a bullish consolidation pattern. QQQ, really big bid on the Qs. Again, S&P trying to push for this little neckline test. Let's see if they want to give it to the bulls. QQQ back to the green side here slightly. So right now we've taken profits on SPY, Qs, still riding common shares short MSTR. We're about $18 in the money. Okay. Do like 517 puts in this region again on the Qs. Sorry, 517 puts again on the SPY in this region are kind of appealing again. We're sitting at 64 cents. I'm not taking them yet. I just want to see how this pattern potentially unfolds, as we are seeing the QQQ also trying to catch a sizable rally here off of the lows. So S&P still leading the charge. Russell's actually the best performing index. It just made a brief new high of day there on the Russell. Still have mega cap tech lagging things a touch here. Nat gas trying to push back higher. Nat gas right now is up about 1.17%. Oil seeing some more selling. MSTR is trying to catch a bid here. QQQ still trying to press. Seeing some sell side coming into NVIDIA and Apple though. Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon all trying to press higher. Bitcoin trying to catch a bid. Still holding MSTR. Come on, MSTR. Drop it low. Drop it low. Anyone else looking at anything worth mentioning right now? You have Tesla still down 3. Snap slightly green. Big decline there in the S&P. Really sizable decline in the S&P. Disney's now at a new low of day, 105.16 trading on Disney. Pretty impressive sell-off in DIS. The mouse getting hit hard. S&P still coming in a touch. Was hoping Disney long, but it keeps falling. Yeah, I'm not in Disney. I'm gonna leave that one alone. You got your bounce trade already intraday. There's been one bounce in Disney. This one's probably going to get sold into all day, especially if the market is weak. I'm looking at 101.35 as a really good support on Disney. 101.35. But this is a classic theta burn day, chopping people up and out. So right now it's important, if you're taking options, to really pick the highs if you're shorting and pick the lows if you're long, because we're just getting chopped up in a sideways range at the moment. Forming a bit of a bullish pattern potentially on the S&P. The Russell's still moving, trying to move higher here along with the Qs. S&P moving back up. Bitcoin trying to catch a bid here off 63.3. Guys, I'm going to put an in-the-money stop loss on MicroStrategy. Just above these high pivots, 1285.28. Just an in-the-money stop on MicroStrategy, okay? Just in the event that that wants to fall here. Let's look at Bitcoin again. Bitcoin's had a nice stellar bounce, trying to push up here. So that's the reason why I'm putting a in the money stop on MSTR. Yep, Disney's weak. Disney's so weak at the lows of the session. Disney. You'll have some support at 102.60 area, 102.60 on Disney, but the bigger area is around 101.30ish, 101.35. But if we flushed into 102.60, you know, on consecutive down candles, I may be interested in a bit of a long attempt at a long bounce scalp. All right, we're seeing NVIDIA trying to stage a bounce. Microsoft still bouncing. Meta curling up. Amazon, bit of a 5-minute bear flag forming. Bear flag on 10-minute Tesla chart, but it is trying to bounce off the zone. NVIDIA also forming a bit of a 10-minute bear flag, but it did hit hourly chart support at 892, currently trading at 900. So that's trying to move up off of the lows. Now the Russell's starting to actually come in a touch, guys. So the IWM is starting to see some sellers. S&P coming in. Just one big chop fest in the S&P. Dixie's still trying to press a little higher here. Let's look at some of these market movers. Still the same kind of names, underperforming and outperforming. Really nothing's changed here on CNBC. MSTR is catching a bounce here with Bitcoin. Disney is continuing to go lower. Oil had a nice decline there. Oil big bounce coming off that 72.35 level. Oil's trying to stage a bounce. Come on, S&P, give it up. Give it up. Ciao, ciao. So markets are just range bound at the moment. S&P is still just stuck in a range. All right, here comes more sell side in the S&P, guys. Again, I'm still writing a 516 put on the SPY. I'm down about 4 cents. My average is 41 cents on the 516 put. QQQ, we already pulled profits. Look at this range, the tight range. Mindfulness meditation asking, is it a good idea to buy the VXX here at 1246? Yeah, I mean, there's a potential, right? There is a potential here. You got that positive divergence on the daily chart. Nice 3 consecutive down weeks in a row on the VXX. Let's just see if there's any sort of support triangle. You can see that maybe there's one more little flush on the VXX. Look at the sizable bounce coming into the market here. So there might be one more little flush. I would wait personally for a pierce of 12 bucks. That's just me personally. If you want to start inching in and accumulating, I have no issues with that. But I'd wait for a little bit lower. Pierce of 12 bucks gets me interested. All right, let's look back at MSTR. That one's still trying to push higher with the S&P. QQQ also trying to test a little bit of a neckline. Potential breakout. The S&P is still pushing here. All right, big technical breakout trying to be observed in the S&P and the Qs. All right, guys, I just shorted the S&P here. It's dangerous. 517 put on the SPY, 517 put on the SPY. Got filled at 52 cents a contract. This is super high risk. Please size for loss. And the trade is slightly going against us here. Again, at 52 cents filled at a 517 put on the SPY. We are trying to be a breakout. We're not buying the breakout. That trade has actually been working against many people when you buy the breakout and chase it. Again, the S&P is looking a little bit firm in this region. We are seeing some signs of accumulation. Again, upside target on this takes us to 518.50, believe it or not. MSTR is almost about to stop us out. I'm still short though. So 517 put on the SPY. It's super high risk because we are trying to break out of an inverse here. QQQ looking strong. NVDA ripping. Apple's trying to rip. Russell made a new high. Here we go. A little bit of a potential reversal in the breakout. Come on, SPY. Make this a failed inverse head and shoulders, and I'll be happy. SPY's still holding steady. I'm still in MSTR. Bitcoin's still trading at 63.4. Really, the strength that is coming from this NASDAQ and S&P pop is from Google, NVDA, Amazon, Tesla. Apple's still struggling a bit here. Microsoft's now curling down a touch. Meta's starting to see some sellers off 465. Again, we're writing a 517 put now on the SPY. Got filled at 52 cents. It's basically break even right now on the trade. This is sized for loss. Again, I really don't want to see this breakout out of this high of day. We break out of the high of day, and that's not good for the put positions or any short plays. So the S&P is just trying to consolidate here. QQQ still trying to firm up here, but Microsoft is looking a little heavier. Amazon, NVIDIA trying to press. S&P is trying to break out here and push. Google still curling up. Same thing with NVIDIA. QQQ still trying to press. Oil is getting a really big bid here. So oil's catching a nice sizable bid. S&P still trying to grind. No confirmed breakout yet, but it's trying. Alright guys, we may have to stop out. I'm watching this candle. If we get a new closing high on this 1 minute candle, I may have to take a loss on these SPY 517 puts. So just monitor the trade carefully. Again, in 24 seconds, I don't want to see this candle make a new closing high. That's not going to be good for our put position. And it's looking like it will. Alright guys, I just stopped out there at 46 cents a con. I took a loss of 6 cents. And MicroStrategy did stop me out as well, guys. So we're now out of all of the day trades today. We did take a small little win on MicroStrategy. SPY did stop us out for about 11% loss on those 517s. So I apologize about that SPY trade there. That one did not go according to plan. You're hitting this double top zone. But we are all out of the SPY contracts at the moment. S&P is still trying to come in here. Bitcoin's moving up nicely. Look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA's trying to firm up here across the board. Again, apologies about that SPY put. Alright, upside target on the SPY is now 518.50. And you can see that target. Whoops, sorry. That target is observed from this little downsloping trend line connecting these pivots. So there's going to be a decent amount of resistance in this range. So again, a nice little inverse head and shoulders has triggered on the SPY. I was a little bit skeptical of it because I was seeing that weakness in the Qs, but the Qs ended up firming up and breaking out itself. Look at that little breakout. I was a little bit skeptical about this right shoulder dipping too heavy, but it definitely played out. If you look at Apple, Apple's still struggling. I was a little bit skeptical that the market would continue firming up with Apple actually giving back a lot of its gains. You know, Microsoft also firming up, but really it was semis that firmed up here. Semiconductors, NVIDIA, Amazon, Google all pressing. Meta's now pressing. TDG gap down on decent earnings. Sure looks interesting. One super bullish chart. TDG. Let's take a look. Yeah, TDG, I mean, still grinding higher and higher. That is a big gap down. You know, I'd like to see it fill this gap, see how it reacts around that 1200 psychological number. And that's probably a little bit more of a better risk to reward entry, from my opinion. Let's look at the Russell 2000. That one's pushing higher as well. Big bounce on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has negated that head and shoulders. Next resistance is the 64K. But it still could be now forming a much larger head and shoulders on Bitcoin. You can see now you have a left shoulder, a head. This could be the stages of a right shoulder. But a big bounce coming back into Bitcoin. Microsoft still pushing, Apple putting in bearish consolidation. What a monster push in Bitcoin, guys, coming into play here. Huge push. What a push in Bitcoin, guys. Wow. That MSTR trade, I mean, we should have taken profits earlier, but that's why you put a stop loss in. That's why you put a stop loss in. Let's look at it. Actually, we'll keep an eye on Apple at the moment because Apple's actually being faded into here. Your alert is now set. Nice job, Paul. Alright, so QQQ is absolutely ripping right now. Qs are now into a really good resistance trend line. But it does look like they're trying to even push this higher. MicroStrategy, huge move. Apple's still coming in a touch. S&P still trying to grind higher. New high of day on the S&P. All right, guys, I'm going to short the S&P at this 518.55 level, just with common shares. You can do put options, but again, I'm just going to use common shares. 518.55 gets me interested. Crypto stocks are still trying to outperform here. Bitcoin's still pumping. It's at above 64,000 now. This is a bit of a short zone for Bitcoin, but it's starting to pump hard. Bitcoin is pumping really hard here. All right, guys, let's see if we can play MicroStrategy on the short side again. It's high risk. Look at that surge. Guys, 1320 or higher, I'm going to start a short position on MSTR. 1320 will be my first entry again on MSTR on the short side. Just common shares. Just common shares short. It's high risk. Bitcoin's pushing. Qs are starting to come in a touch here. S&P's starting to come in a touch. S&P is starting to roll over a touch here. All right, MicroStrategy off the table. That's getting a pullback. Lower highs on Microsoft, guys. Lower highs on Microsoft. Microsoft's putting in this tight wedge pattern. Let's look at Datadog, DDOG. That one's trying to actually get above its gap down high pivot. That's actually an impressive sign. All right, guys, I'm going to go long this DDOG. Just common shares. I'll let you know when I get filled. I am hoping for an actual back test of this 115 area. And then basically any sort of close below this pivot again would be your stop loss. I'm going to watch that on my other screen. Apple coming in here. Let's look back at Microsoft. Microsoft's still trying to hold its wedge. All right, guys, I'm going to short Microsoft here. 412.40. I am short Microsoft with common shares. 412.40. Short MSFT. Target, basically back down to these low pivots. And you can see that it is trying to bounce off this area. So I have 100 shares short Microsoft. I'm willing to take this up to 400 shares. Big bounce. Coming in. Where I'll add to Microsoft is 30 cents higher. This 412.70 area. Or the top of the wedge. Top of the wedge is a little bit better. Big bounce coming into MSFT. Crypto's still trying to hold steady. The Russell 2000 is just surging. So just in a Microsoft short at the moment. watching this market progress. I think Microsoft can come back down to its low of days. You're seeing Apple being faded here. NVIDIA's had a nice bounce off of the lows. NVIDIA hit around that 890. It's had about a $15 bounce. MSTR is starting to come in a touch here. It's now approaching 1108. And we've had the indices briefly dip into the red territory on the Qs. Now they're back up 0.3. The Qs have actually taken leadership over the S&P. So that's a little bit of a character change. The S&P was stronger than the Qs. Now the Qs are stronger than the S&P. The Russell's still the strongest, up 0.67%. All right, Microsoft still coming in. All right, guys, I'm looking at 517 put on the SPY again. Gut filled at 45 cents. 517, 45 cents. SPY 517 put. SPY 517 put. Still holding support. We are seeing Microsoft breaking out of its wedge pattern. They're trying to defend it right now. Bitcoin seeing a little bit of sellers. Nothing crazy though. The Dixie still holding above 105, but seeing some sellers in this region. Meta's still grinding. NVIDIA is still trading at 904. Tesla's curling down a touch. Apple bouncing. Microsoft recapturing its wedge pattern. Google pushing for a new high of day. Bitcoin getting rejected at 64,000. Ram's looking at CVS. Wow, big bounce in Microsoft there. Yeah, CVS is going to try to break this range, and then you're kind of going to press for this gap. So it is an area here that I don't mind CVS. You're into a whole ton of support here. So, I mean, if you want to try to bottom pick this one, yeah, I have no issues. With call options, just give yourself lots of time on the clock. But it does seem like a nice little buy program is coming back into CVS here, trying to get above this key little high pivot. So as long as you stay above that, this stock is probably looking for a bit of a bullish reversal. So nice little find on that chart there. Microsoft still firm. You know, we could play along on CVS as a bit of a hedge here. It's still oversold, so I don't mind. I'm just going to wait to see if the SPY checks back to this breakout neckline. I think that there is a scenario that we can retest this little inverse head and shoulders neckline. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for. But keep CVS on watch because it is looking like a bit of a bottoming formation. It's 3 days of earnings have passed. Again, so we're short Microsoft and we have a 517 put on the SPY again. Microsoft still holding steady. Apple seeing a little more sellers. Google seeing some sellers at the double top. Meta is still grinding higher. It's up 0.31%. Amazon up 0.26%. Tesla still down 2.5%. NVDA down 1.8%. Apple up 0.57%. Microsoft down 0.25%. S&P Q's Russell all green. Russell new high of day. Trading going for 206 on the Russell. Wow. Microsoft trying to see some more buyers. Boeing's trying to curl up. Nat Gas still holding positive gains. CVS is still pushing. Paul saying he has an alert set for $49 level on APGE. APGE. Yeah, so I mean, this type of name, I just want to caution you, it's extremely light volume, between 200,000 and 400,000 shares being traded. So it's light volume stock. Not my favorites to trade. I don't really like talking about light volume stocks because they can be pumped and dumped a little bit more, and I don't want to misconstrue and lead anyone down any sort of pump and dump scams. Not saying this stock is, it's just there's a tendency for lighter volume stocks to be manipulated a little bit easier. But in terms of the technicals, what this chart, you're saying you have an order at $49? Is that what it, $49 level? So down and around this. So yeah, I mean, you could potentially have a inverse head and shoulders setting up here. You got a little left shoulder on the 4-hour chart. You've got a nice little defined head, and now you're potentially carving out a right shoulder. So I think 49 is a safe dip. If you get into a dip into this level, I think that's a safe buy. Trying to pick that. All right, Microsoft breaking down out of its wedge again. We're still short Microsoft with common shares, but it really hasn't started to cooperate just yet. S&P is just consolidating in this range as if it wants to move higher. The QQQ did briefly put in a new high there. So it's interesting as you have Microsoft actually weakening, breaking down, but the Qs are still putting in new highs. That's actually showing relative strength across the QQQ Nasdaq sector. There goes the S&P again, trying to move higher on us. Big rejection off 518 coming in. A little bit more volume starting to appear. Come on, S&P. Back test this EMA. Again, guys, I'll probably look for a close of my position, or at least trimming a big chunk of it on the 517s if we retest this neckline as well as this EMA on the 1-minute chart. So any retest in and around this 517.60, 517.40 range, I will be looking to trim some profits on the SPY puts. Still riding Microsoft. I think Microsoft target is around this double bottom. Apple curling down, Meta still pushing, Amazon curling down, seeing some sellers. More sell side pressure coming into the S&P at the moment. Microsoft still trying to break down out of this range. Russell still gunning for that 206 that actually just almost pierced the 206 level. SPX hit a high of just below 5,200 psychological whole number. Are the S&Ps starting to weaken here? Tesla's had a nice hour bounce, 60-minute bounce. Again, Google's at double top, Meta's at double top. Apple's still selling off a little bit. Amazon's curling down a touch. NVIDIA's still trading at 904. S&P's just range bound. We're approaching 1119 on the clock. 1119. Right now, Bitcoin turned back to the green. It's up 0.5%. S&P's up 0.28. QQQ's up 0.33. IWM's up 0.68. So S&P has now taken the lagger role in the market, which is why we flipped from shorting the Qs to shorting the S&P. So the S&P is now lagging the indices, whereas QQQ is starting to gain a little bit more momentum. Bitcoin seeing some heavy volume and sellers off 64,000. NVIDIA is trying to press. That's not good for the S&P. Microsoft still breaking down in the red. NVIDIA is now at 907, trying to break out of a bull flag. So NVIDIA is pressing here. You have Microsoft and Apple curling down, but NVIDIA's ripping here, guys. NVIDIA's starting to break out of a bit of a flag pattern here. Look at that little breakout on NVIDIA attempting here. So a bit of opposite price action. Breakdown in Microsoft, breakout in NVIDIA, breakdown in Apple. Let's see if NVIDIA becomes a failed breakout and they want to push it down. Again, remember, NVIDIA is one of those stocks that has such a heavy weighting in the SMH and the SOXX that even if Microsoft and Apple decline, we have seen NVIDIA just lift the markets higher. So as of now, we're seeing the S&P just consolidating in a 518 range. QQQ still trying to push up above 441.70. Russell 2000 getting slightly rejected at 206. You've had oil put in a really big reversal, trying to recapture $78 on WTI crude. It's still down 0.5%. Microsoft trying to catch a bid. Apple still looking heavy. So now you have Meta, Apple, and Meta, NVIDIA, and Microsoft all trying to push. S&P's still just stuck in this range at the moment. The QQQ getting a nice sizable bid. The dollar's still trading at 105.11, slightly green, but yields are down sharply. Inflation expectations in the yield market is slowly changing here based off of oil declining. Meta just made a new high of day. Apple is still pushing lower. S&P trying to catch a bid. As the S&P has been moving up, Apple's falling still. Yeah, Netflix is almost into this gap fill. Almost recaptured its bearish breakdown on earnings. Quite impressive on Netflix. Quite impressive on Netflix. All right, bigger breakdown coming in the S&P. Our put positions are now starting to print for us. We're still short Microsoft with common shares, and we're writing a 517 put on the SPY. Come on. Again, I'm looking for a profit target in and around this range, this trend line, EMA 113. I'm looking to scale out of some of these puts. I'm probably going to sell half and move stop to break even on the 517. Okay? Again, my stop loss is at 45 cents a con. That's where my average is sitting. We're just slightly green on this trade, slightly green on Microsoft. NVDA almost had a bit of a failed breakout there. Seeing some sellers whacking price action back down. Nice 1 minute close below 518. I want to see if we hit this pivot though. SPY's holding this previous high pivot. Still think there's a chance we back test this neckline of this inverse. And that's going to be a big level. As of now, the S&P is getting a sizable bounce back up. Microsoft's trying to actually break out here. Apple's still struggling. Google's seeing some sellers. You do have a Fed member, Kashkari, coming in 5 minutes. Last time he spoke, he actually put some downward pressure on the market. Dollar right now is catching a bit of a bid. It's at 105.13, curling up. Amazon curling down. Google getting rejected at double top. Meta still holding at double top. NVIDIA did not break out of that 5-minute bull flag. Trying to make another attempt right now. Apple still struggling. It's almost at its downward side target. Downside target on Apple today is 180, 180 off of its head and shoulders breakdown. Again, Kashkari is coming in 4 minutes. Fed member Kashkari coming in 4 minutes. Again, profit target if we get a flush into this EMA, this trend line. I will be looking to take profits on the SPY 517 puts. I'll be looking to pull half of the profits if we flush into this area. Oil starting to come in a touch. Microsoft grinding higher here in the near term. Apple trying to firm up. Meta new high of day now trading at 469.10 on Meta. CVS continuing to push. Oil is still making a move. My biggest regret is that USO trade that we took a loss on. Look at that. Went in the green for us. So we had the right idea, just not the right execution on USO. Microsoft trying to firm up. SPY's trying to firm up as well. Big push in the dollar. Surprising to see the market also pushing. Quite extraordinary. Still riding this 517. We're down about 3 cents. Come on, SPY. Peel it back. Microsoft's peeling it back. Kashkari in roughly 1 minute. Dixie's spiking here. 10-year yield at 1.34% heading into this meeting. Apple did make a new low of day. Microsoft still pushing, guys. Alright guys, I just added to my Microsoft short here. My average is now sitting at 412.58. That's a half position. Oil's still pushing. Again, if oil starts to keep pushing here and putting in a bit of a daily chart reversal, if it goes green, you're going to have to see the dollar firm up and equity markets. Through this whole rally, one of the big things that's been weak on the session is oil. You know, one of the reasons the market has bounced so sharply is oil's fallen over the last couple weeks, and that's definitely changed the forward-looking expectation of interest rates. You know, oil falling, that's disinflationary. Next CPI still likely comes in hotter because of the oil price action over the month of April. But if May still comes in weak, then that changes the forward-looking pricing of interest rates. So Amazon curling down, Google curling down, Meta still strong. Dixie's now at 105.16. Again, our members were able to take a nice win on UBT, so we were able to play the fall in interest rates. Ooh, Microsoft spiking here, guys. Microsoft is starting to spike. Next two ad levels on Microsoft, 413.29, 413.64. Down about 3 cents on the SPY 517 put. Here comes the S&P. Can we get that back test of the neckline and that EMA 113? They're confluencing right at that same zone, guys. Again, still the same thing. Profit target. I will be looking. We're now starting to print on these cons, guys. We are starting to print on these cons. Come on. Flush it a bit lower. Flush it a bit lower. They're still trying to find some support off this range. Come on. Keep busting it down. Come on. Keep flushing it. EMA 113 and this trend line. Get ready, guys. I will be pulling profits if we flush into there. So you likely will get a decent bounce off of that zone. Kashkari's coming out. IWM coming in. Come on, drop it. Some buyers are stepping back into the plate, but you're seeing Microsoft, NVDA, Tesla all coming in here. Even Meta's starting to fall. Apple's trying to bounce. So it's almost like Apple's an inverse of the market at the moment. Every time the S&P and the Qs are falling, it seems that Apple's trying to bottom and bounce. And every time Apple's falling, it seems like the market is bouncing. So, I mean, it definitely appears to be that Apple's an inverse the market at this point, which is really interesting to observe. Bitcoin coming in. Dollar still trying to press a little bit higher here. 10-year yield catching a little bit of a spike, but nothing crazy here. Nothing crazy. Still holding Microsoft short. We're slightly down on that trade, half position. It is approaching that 11:40 time frame, 12 o'clock. I'll probably take a break soon, a lunch break. I'm going to look to try to get out of these SPY put options before my lunch break, and then I'm probably just going to leave Microsoft riding. I still think that Microsoft has pretty much been negative all session. Even though all indices are green, I still think that there's a bit of a distribution game occurring in Microsoft at the moment. And I do think that it's probably going to retest the lows of the session. Alright, we're up about 3 cents on the 517 put on the SPY. Again, still the same profit target in and around this region on half of the position. Alright guys, NVIDIA is trying to make another attempt at breaking out of a bull flag. I don't like seeing that. I do not like seeing Apple new low of day. Meta's going for a new high. Amazon's trying to push. Microsoft and Apple are leaning and waning on things at the moment. Amazon trying to break out of a 5-minute bull flag. Meta's still grinding. Apple's still struggling. It's only up 0.21%. So the whole move on Apple has almost been faded. The entire move. And what does that tell you? It tells you investors are likely pricing in that this AI chip that they're trying to explore, their in-house chip, may be expensive. If the S&P can recapture this pivot and get above it and establish a range above this 517.94, it's probably going to try to push back up to this 518.50 area. Right now, this previous high pivot is a big area. Below it, I think, is shorts. Above it, I think we get a continuation move long. Amazon's looking strong. Apple getting dumped on. Microsoft dumping. Amazon's pumping. Google curling down. Meta curling down. Net, it's throwing some sell side pressure into the S&P. But Apple falling. Apple's almost to the negative side, guys. So now you have a scenario where Apple, Microsoft, and NVDA are potentially all negative, and you still have the Qs green. How crazy is that, right? The big three are potentially all rolling over to the negative side, and you still have the S&P, the NASDAQ green. That is just extraordinary price action. You typically don't see that. You don't see that often. Amazon's still trying to press. NVIDIA all day has been bubbling up against this 906 zone, trying to get above it. Our NVIDIA's seeing some more sellers off 506. But now Microsoft's trying to firm up. Same thing with Apple. Bitcoin's still trying to get back above 64,000. Currently trading at 63.7. The Dixie's ripping here, guys, which is why I think these indices are probably going to see some sell side. Look at this Dixie move. You know, the Dixie again, remember I said it has broken out of an hourly inverse head and shoulders. It even had that 10-minute chart pattern. Then you look at the daily chart, and there's also a little inverse head and shoulders that on the daily that I've discussed with my members. But this Dixie chart is still trying to press here, which I'm surprised the indices haven't reacted. Even the Russell's still trying to press. Qs are still trying to press. NVIDIA, Amazon, Google, Apple, new low. Microsoft also falling. I mean, just look at this complete destruction in Apple. I'm so surprised these indices are still staying this firm. When you had Apple at the highs here, 184, making a round trip lower, I'm shocked that these markets haven't rolled over a little bit more. Dixie's still pumping here. Microsoft trying to push. Dixie's still pushing. 10-year yield actually going lower, which is why the markets are liking that. NVIDIA trying to break out yet again of its bull flag. Alright guys, the S&P is trying to establish itself back above this high pivot. If you can get another 1 minute close above there and confirm, that's optimistic. Alright, so S&P is still trying to grind. NVIDIA, Amazon still looking strong. It's been a weird day today. A lot of chop, a lot of slop. A lot of mixed price action across the board. Apple's almost negative here, guys. Meta new high. Amazon just briefly made a new high there. Yeah, Bart, I've had actually I'm contacting Squarespace. I've had some technical difficulties updating the positions. Just so you're aware, members, the position log on my website is actually quite a number of days behind, as there's been some sort of technical difficulties on Squarespace end. So I'm in contact with them just to be aware that there are some positions that have been closed, and there's some new positions that haven't been added yet. So just follow the Telegram chat and alert service, because the website right now, again, I haven't been able to update it due to some technical difficulties, which Squarespace is trying to look into right now. But if you have any questions, just let me know. But yeah, you're right, SDS has not been updated, Bart. Alright guys, I'm going to take a stop loss on this Microsoft. I'm going to stop out of Microsoft here. 412.76. I'm closing Microsoft for a small loss just because the fact that we're holding above this key high pivot. The S&P does look like it wants to press higher here. So I just covered Microsoft there at that 412.72. Look at that. Right away we're getting a reversal off that zone. So small loss there on Microsoft. Other than that, I think I'm going to wrap up the session here. I'll keep the stream going in case anything drastic happens. Thank you, Daisy. Yeah, I hope it's resolved too. It's kind of frustrating. You pay a lot of money for these websites to be run each month, and the technical difficulties are crazy. But other than that, it's an okay session. one loss on oil, couple losses on the SPY puts. Early on, we did make a nice winner. So it's net. We're slightly green, but it's nothing crazy. I mean, not my best day, not my worst day. Just an average okay day. The bonuses were not red. That's the key. But definitely would have liked some of these trades to work out better in favor. I really thought that these SPY puts were going to print a little bit more. Obviously, they still could, but as of now, the indices are just chopping and grinding, trying to firm up here. NVIDIA trying to break out, testing 909, pushing up here. Just to summarize a few things, you have gold and silver down on the back of strong dollar. You have yield soft, 10-year yield down 1.45% today. Tesla's down 2.8%. Interesting to see Tesla struggling even when yields are this soft and the market is green. Nat gas slightly green on the session. Marijuana stocks slightly green on the session. Datadog's down 11. That's a big mover. Rivian got faded the whole entire move. It's only slightly green. Just scrolling through here just to provide any other updates. What else can we look at? Other than that, that's pretty much the market session here. Again, it does appear that the market is trying to put in higher highs and higher lows. So until that trend is broken, it's a tough market to short. And I mean, there is still a potential that we can push all the way up to about this 518.68 level. Okay, on the S&P. Russell has some really good resistance, gap fill resistance at 206.38. And then the QQQ is into some really good downsloping resistance right now, but it's trying to work itself through it. We'll just leave the 5-minute S&P chart up here, guys, for you. You can see Microsoft is trying to break out of its little range. Let's just try to adjust this channel a little bit more. Again, we have triggered an inverse head and shoulders on the smaller time frames, and it is looking to press higher. Apple just made a new low of day. Microsoft's trying to push higher and break out. Meta, Google, Amazon, NVIDIA still trying to curl up. Remember, NVIDIA is still negative on the session, down 1.33. Microsoft's still slightly negative. Apple just slightly green, and you still have the Qs and the SPY green. So I mean, that's telling us that the broad market rotation is strong. All sectors of the S&P 500 are green, except for Tesla, XLY. So with Apple, Microsoft, and NVIDIA negative, there's always a risk of a market sell-off. That being said, if those names catch a bid, this S&P and QQQ can absolutely make a monster rip to the high side because those names have underperformed and are underperforming the indices at the moment, and look how strong the indices are. So it's kind of this catch-22 where, yes, we're vulnerable to the downside if those names keep selling, but at the same time they firm up. The market has been strong as we've seen sell-side pressure in the 3 largest companies. So if that sell-side starts to abate, and you can see Microsoft trying to break out here, it could easily push the S&P higher. My upside target, my max measured move on the S&P today is kind of a little bit outlandish. I had a calculated target of about 520.44. I don't think that's going to be hit, but again, 520.44 was my measured move to the upside. And then to the downside, my measured move was actually 512.65. So, I mean, it's a pretty decent range. But it looks like the upside range is maybe a little bit more likelier to hit. All right, guys, I'm going to take a little bit of a lunch break. I will maybe see you for the afternoon session. If anything drastic happens, I'll try to jump on and execute some trades. Other than that, thank you all for tuning into the live session here. And we'll see you on the charts a little bit later. Let's just switch this view here. Just going to change the view here briefly, guys. And we're going to do a bit of a split screen here. Just so you guys can see. We'll keep the Microsoft 10-minute chart on watch. Bit of a decline coming into the Qs and the S&P here. Oil is making a really bullish push, guys. So oil right now is trying to go green. It's only down 0.25%. So oil is making a really decent push. Google news. Google's unveiling a new Pixel tablet for $399. Initial little spike in Google. Meta's just a freight train to the upside right now. Amazon curling down. NVDA at 911, only down 1%. Dixie made a new high as well, so the Dixie's starting to rip. Again, I'm still surprised the indices have been this strong with the Dixie pushing this high. You look at even the Russell. Russell's still holding strength. Look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's still holding strength. All right, guys, so S&P did make a new high of day, and you are seeing a bit of rejection coming into play. So the S&P did make a new high, and now some rejection and sell side pressures coming into play. Again, you're still holding bullish structure on the Qs above its gap, but there is resistance here in the markets. And look what oil did, guys. Look what oil has done. I mean, a monster move. I just wish I was still in that USO trade. Anyone that still traded that USO, you're in the driver's seat. But oil making a bit of a bullish reversal to the upside. That, again, doesn't support higher prices in the equity markets. It actually, you would want to see oil break down, but this is where longs are favored in the energy space off of this level right here. But again, oil moving up is not good. WTI crude had a big spike to the upside, potentially putting in a daily bottoming tail, and that likely means there could be higher oil price action to come. So that's not really positive for the market. You look at Microsoft, that's also been faded here on the chart, seeing a little bit of a breakdown from that wedge pattern again. Bit of a failed breakout on Microsoft. That's always concerning when you have the largest company in the world putting in a bit of a failed breakout. Okay, so obviously we're still seeing some weakness creeping back into the market through some individual names. Majority of sectors are still green except for XLY. But NVIDIA, Microsoft have been negative all day. Apple's teetering on the brink of going negative, and the market is still acting very resilient for the time being. Quite resilient. But with oil, if oil manages to go hold its green price action, that could be a near-term low in energy. And this is kind of shaping up. What's really fascinating, I'm just going to flip to one chart here just so that we can see it a little bit better. But I kind of dissected this with my members, and obviously the inflation expectations next month are still going to be higher. Why? Because when you look at April, majority of April, oil was trading in an uptrend. Spiking up, pulling back, but still relatively above $81 a barrel. Now in May, oil started off on a really bad foot, but trying to bounce off of support. So what's interesting is if you actually compare the May cycle here, last year May, oil also had a 1, 2, 3 bar sell-off with a fourth candle gap down and then a bullish reversal. And that was kind of your low pivot around that 64. So again, same thing in May, 1 candle, 2 candles, 3 candles, 4, now we're getting a reversal off of support. So interesting to see the price action working out relatively similar to the last May cycle. And if oil goes through something like this again, I mean, that's not going to be good for inflation expectations as well as interest rates. The S&P is still holding steady. Let's split the screen again with Microsoft and the S&P. Mindfulness meditation asking a question here. Do you think we still make new all-time highs on the SPY and QQQ? Yeah, there's a potential for that. There is a potential. Obviously, you have NVIDIA earnings still. That's the big one. But there's certainly a potential. I would like to actually see a pullback in this range on the Qs. Actually, let's just look at the NDX chart. Daily chart of the NDX here. Stellar bounce, a little bit of ahead of itself in the near term. I would love to see this pull back. And again, this is the thing, right? You have this left shoulder. You have this head. I'd love to see this pull back in price, create a bit of a right shoulder. And then you could break out to new highs. I don't want to see this keep trending because then that means the move is a little bit more unsustainable. We want to see pullback. I mean, we've had a really sizable bounce from this low all the way up to the high, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 days of consecutive upside. It's getting a little long in the tooth. You can see the resistance we're now tapping on the Q's daily chart. That's your neckline. But if we pull back and create a little bit of a right shoulder, then this pattern definitely has more legs. Now, I have seen some traders, one thing I was discussing with one of my mentors is actually this little micro inverse head and shoulders on the Qs. You can arguably say it has triggered. So here's your left shoulder, your head. This would be your micro right shoulder. Not really the best right shoulder, but if we give it some validity on the Qs, you know, the measured move of this pattern, believe it or not, does take us to a brief new all-time high on the NASDAQ. So to answer your question simply, yes, I think that there is a chance we can make new all-time highs. But I would love to see a pullback and forming a right shoulder. I'd love to see a pullback off this resistance, form a right shoulder down here, and then a bigger move can ensue. But as of now, yeah, markets are looking structurally bullish to continue higher in the near term. But I do think that we could be in for a little bit of a pullback. Guys, we have Apple breaking down, so you now have Microsoft, NVIDIA, Apple, all negative on the session, and you still have the S&P and the QQQ pushing. What is going on here? What is going on? The big three are all negative, but the market is still grinding and pushing. This is quite extraordinary price action to see. That just shows you that there is a lot of accumulation occurring under the hood in other S&P 500 stock and NASDAQ stocks. Granted, at the moment, you do have, Google having a nice day today. Amazon slightly green, Meta up about 1%, but very rare to see the big three red on the session and the indices are still green. That's quite extraordinary. And again, I do think that as long as those three stay negative, there does run a risk of a market sell. Again, Apple was up 1.5% at the highs, and now it's gone negative. That's quite a big sell side range. Oil is continuing to press higher, guys. Oil is continuing to press higher here. Apple just made a new low of day on Apple. New low of day on Apple. NVIDIA curling down. Google, Meta still strong. Microsoft putting in what appears to be bearish consolidation. Some sell side pressure coming into the markets. Again, Microsoft dumping here, guys. That's leading the SPY awry. Oil again making a bullish reversal. Red to green, potentially a local low bottom in oil. Energy stocks are liking that bid. A little bit more weakness creeping in, guys. A little bit more weakness creeping back into the market here. STL getting, what are we looking at? QQQ puts now. Yeah, you could have entered at the top there. I still think we could retrace back to the neckline. But again, as long as the SPY holds this 518 level, this high pivot, things remain tactically bullish, right? And let me just directly put that in. Again, longs are favored above this white trend line, shorts below. Nice decline coming in. OMI sold down 21% into earnings yesterday, into major support. Looks like a decent risk reward. Let's look at OMI. Look at that S&P, guys. Look at that S&P coming in hot. Coming in hot. Nice continuation decline on the markets, guys. Crypto's also getting sold into here. The dollar's trying to spike a bit. Yeah, so this OMI chart, obviously it did gap down. You want to wait usually a couple days ahead of earnings. Right off the bat, what I'm seeing here is you're holding this trend line. That's your breakout trend line. I think as long as you hold above that, this stock is just doing a simple back test. You know, this did trigger an inverse head and shoulders. Let's see what the upside target was. So you can see the upside target off of this inverse head and shoulders break on OMI, you know, really puts you at almost 30 bucks on the chart. And we came close to fulfilling that upside target. Now you're just back testing this trend line. I'd wait a couple days, a little bit more, see how this settles out. You know, if you lose that trend line, your bigger support is this higher low trend line at around Pierce of 16 bucks. Let's look at STLA. Yeah, STLA. Yeah, STLA looks interesting. You can right away see these pivot tops here from 2021. That's a big support level. That's definitely a decent support level. You're hitting the weekly 50 MA on STLA, so there is some support. Definitely oversold on some of these time frames. So I think this actually provides a good risk to reward entry, actually, STLA. Nice little chart. You are into a whole host of support. You came down, you filled that gap. and held it. Let's just see some weekly retrace levels. If we do a fib from this low in COVID to the high, maybe we come down a little bit more to the 382, which is sitting at about $20.59. However, if we use these recent low pivots, your double bottom, yeah, maybe a little bit more downside, but again, there is a whole host of support here. These pivots, oversold on the daily, the weekly 50 MA. Ooh, let's pull up CVNA. Hindenburg just came out with the report, potential accounting fraud at CVNA. Let's see if that starts to hit it. Potential accounting fraud at Carvana, Hindenburg Research. Guys, I'm doing a swing trade here, short CVNA. I just shorted CVNA at 119. Let's look back at Microsoft. The indices are getting a bit of a bounce here. So the S&P is getting very choppy and sloppy. This type of pattern looks like a distribution pattern. In the S&P, it does appear like it wants to go a bit lower. Oh yeah, let's finish that STLA chart. I was looking at that. That's actually an interesting setup on STLA. So this little trend line on STLA, that's what I'm looking for. Pivot to pivot to pivot to pivot to back test. I'm looking for a retest of this area. So a little bit lower on STLA. If you want to take a shot here, weekly 50 MA, oversold on the daily, you can take a stab, but I think there's going to be one more little low in this name. One more little low. Alright guys, I'm just going to go silent on the mic as I eat my lunch here. But I am watching things.